Hey everyone, Mike Doloff, Chief Revenue Officer, Inflow Communications. Glad to have with me Chris Riccio. Chris, say hello.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, glad to be talking in our series around customer engagement and bots and bridging this together in the contact center. Today we'll be talking about customer engagement and Genesys Cloud bots. So, Chris, let's dive into this. What, in your opinion, is the key to a good customer engagement strategy?
Well, yeah, customer engagement, we've spent a lot of time in it through various webinars that I've done, and it just runs the gamut. But I think people have sort of a limited view of what that might be. But ultimately, the whole purpose of customer engagement is sort of twofold. Make it easy for your customer to do business with you. That's the number one issue. Anytime you have to take extra steps just to get in contact with somebody, get information about your products or services, it's a turnoff. I mean, we all have cell phones today. We all have some sort of tablet device where we have accessibility to information. So it's sort of preposterous that the amount of effort it takes for a customer just to be serviced at whatever level it is, whether it's a product, whether it's product information, or whether it's just advice, that has to be your number one goal. Make it easy for your customer. There are things that people look for. I know from my personal experience, the phone call is the last thing I want to do. What I want to do is self-help. Where can I go get self-service options that I can figure things out quickly for myself? Usually I'm going through either an IVR, which tends to be second to the last option. I want it via text. I want to hit a website. I want to hit a chat bot. I want to just get quick, simple information. The phone call, to kind of give you perspective on customer experience and customer engagement, the phone call is the last piece. That's the last ditch effort I will go to, and here's why. Technology gives me the accessibility to get information quickly and rapidly, and if I have to pick up the phone call, it better be excellent customer service and right to the point, because the only reason I picked up the phone call is I had a level of frustration in finding information. So that's customer engagement in a nutshell. Make it easy, super easy for your customer to deal with your brand.
Love it. I always use the word, I think of the word friction.
Mhm.
How friction filled or frictionless is that experience, right? If I'm having to like search information and then ultimately I'm like, well, I just got to call them because I can't find it. That's friction. And it could go downhill from there too, right?
Mhm.
I jump into that call and I've got an IVR that's sending me in a bunch of directions. Yeah,
Right.
totally. So talk to me a little bit about where does proactive communications fit into this customer engagement strategy though? I think this is a key point.
Yeah, so every time I bring up the conversation with clients, and as soon as I say proactive communication, all these images of outbound dialers come up. That's the sort of the frame of reference most people have, but it's so far outside that context. The dialer is, quite frankly, old school technology. There are other ways that you can communicate with your clients, and the de facto number one way is via texting. Um, think about your own personal experience. If I get an outbound phone call unsolicited, I'm not answering the call if I don't recognize the number, but the likelihood of my wanting to pick up that call is very slim. Texting, I pick up and answer and practically respond to every text message. It's sort of that phase that we're in of technology. Hey, something buzzed on my hip. Hey, I heard that bell. You're responding to it, or at least reading it. And that's the first step there. But proactive communications is going to be outbound messaging. It's going to be outbound email campaigns. And I actually hate using the word campaigns because, again, it isolates us into this formulated bucket of throw data here and then do X. It actually extends far outside of that as well. And we'll talk about that in another section. But the last piece is web chat. So when we talk about outbound accessibility, proactive engagement, you're going to do it via voice. Texting is probably the number one option. Email is the next, and then web chat.
So I think this is an interesting. So you talked about voice, but you've talked SMS, email, web chat. How exactly do bots fit into that landscape? Those communication channels.
So bots are your gateway to automating virtually the entire process and only bringing in a human when absolutely necessary. Um, there is so much you can do in that context. And let me give you my story and experience. Recently, I've done a home refi, and I was sort of on the fence about, I don't want to do this home refi, but I really want to take advantage of the lower rates. Well, I engaged with Quicken Loans. Quicken Loans, from the point forward, communicate with me solely via text. I got an update. Hey, here's your information. Log into your account. Every step of the process was via text. And I was actually fascinated because anyone that's purchased a home, you have lots of back and forth dialogue with a human. You've got to show all sorts of identifiers and lots of critical information. My entire process was done on my computer, and all of my communication, I would say 97% of my communication was via text. Now, I did talk to a representative once or twice to get a question answered, and then I talked to the notary in person when they showed up to sign the final documents. But the fact that I could do such an extensive transaction completely prompted by text. Now, from my text, I would log into the website, but I wasn't even required to do that. I could actually log in from the app itself, but because you have to upload various documents and pay stubs and things, I did go to my computer and then go to the website. But that communication and that process made it so elegant. And there's another employee that I've worked with that also was the one that actually told me about Quicken Loans. I thought, really? That easy? It was that easy. I am a raving fan. If I never have to step into a bank again and I can do everything and transact it through digital signature, I'm all in.
I think that's such a good example because there's that's a good example of that proactive communication and the different channels, right? And so a lot of the communication wasn't an SMS, I'm assuming, from a person saying, hey, this is the next step. That was automated, right? That was almost a
Yep.
workflow
Yep.
communication, right?
Exactly.
So this is where those bots are, allowing that ability to tie that communication in from a workflow and give, you're up to speed on what's going on. You're able to know what your next step is or what
And,
you're just apprised, right? But it's not
yeah,
taking a human to do it.
right. And let me add this. Not only was I getting the critical information, I could actually see the progress of my documentation from step to step. Docs uploaded, waiting for the next step, checking your employer stats, waiting for the next step, pulling this information, checking with the county, checking with your insurance company. I mean, virtually everything was not a mystery. And a lot of times when you're doing transactions such as a home refi or even purchasing a home, you're kind of just sitting there waiting and wondering. In this case, there was no wondering at all. I didn't have that original, what's going on? Is it going to happen sort of mentality. I had this, oh, this is working great. It was a positive experience from start to finish. And that's really what I consider the hallmark of great customer engagement. Not only was it telling me every step of my process, what was happening, they reached out to me and told me what I needed. I had a to-do list. I mean, it was fantastic. I can't say enough praise about the process.
That's awesome. I think that's really highlights too the example of so proactive communication, using bots to really be a part of that customer engagement strategy. But what it also does, the benefit, of course, is to the customer, to you, but the benefit also is to the company because they're not taking calls from people saying, I'm not sure where I'm at. What's going on? What do you need from me? Which takes time, right? Like which takes people away from doing other things, as well as isn't a great customer experience because the customer's, saying, hey, I don't know what's going on. So I think it's one of those things where I think if you can get that balance of bots and proactive communication in multiple channels right, you get this perfect win-win, right? Your customer experience goes up and to the right, it's positive, and your level of effort from an employer contact center perspective can go down, right?
Yeah,
That's pretty tremendous. So very cool, Chris. Thanks for highlighting that.
sure.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. We actually have a webinar. If you're listening to this sometime in the fall of 2020, we have a webinar coming up talking about hybrid bots, and I think Chris trademark patent pending on that phrase. That's his phrase. This idea of blending of bots with people, right? Hybrid bots, web chat, messaging, and more. That's coming up November 17th, 2020. So check that out if bots and this idea of blending of people and bots is something of interest to you in your customer engagement strategy. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.